Welcome back, everybody, to the School Leadership Show. This is your host, Mike Dowdy. Glad to have you back. I have a very special conversation today with a couple of authors and on a topic that is very close to my heart these days since we can't hire teachers, let alone retain them. So I have with me here today Becky Jo Gertis and Ryan Siegley, who are the authors of 6 Steps Toward Teacher Retention and Long-Lasting Legacy. So welcome, both of you. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
So if we could start, could you just give folks a little bit of background on yourselves so they know kind of where you're coming from, and then we'll dive into the book. So Becky, do you prefer Becky or Becky Jo?
Becky is fine. Becky.
Got Becky. All right. That's like when anybody calls me Michael James, it's because I'm in trouble. So
Yes.
Becky is not in trouble. So Becky, you want to tell folks a little bit about your background?
Yes, my name is Becky Gertis, and I'm from Rochester, Minnesota. That's where I currently reside. I have experience as a classroom teacher, special ed teacher, building principal, dean of academics. But I've worked in schools, and the schools that I've worked in particularly have been schools that have needed to make improvement. And so many of the practices that Ryan and I share in this book come from our experiences that we've had in the field and have seen and heard, but then it aligns with the research that we've done on both a qualitative level and a quantitative level, pulling it all together and seeing that alignment, and that we really had the validity and the reliability behind what we were doing, and putting that together into this book to share with others.
Very cool. Thank you. And Ryan?
Yeah, I've kind of got a diverse background like Becky does, but primarily I'm a fifth grade teacher, and I'm a dad, and I'm proud of both of those things. And really, my family life has shaped what my teaching life has been like, in terms of the way that I approach kids and approach adults in the building. And I've learned a lot from my family. With that said, my experiences have been at the collegiate level, teaching, individuals that are interested in becoming teachers. I've also had experience at the administrative level as an assistant principal. I currently work in Grand Rapids, Minnesota, as a fifth grade teacher, and absolutely love what I do. Becky and I connected years ago now, as she mentioned, as we were working on research for our doctoral dissertations. My background in research really stems under 2 things. It's teacher retention and servant leadership. And those 2 things brought together have quite a bit of correlation. And that brought me into school culture and how we build culture and climate within our buildings and our classrooms. So that's just a little bit about me and the background of where I come from.
That's fantastic. And a couple things, you've got to make some connections here. So Becky, you live in Rochester, Minnesota. I live in Rochester, New York. So how about that? Now, how do you say it? What's the name of the town where you live?
Rochester.
Rochester. See, we land on a different syllable. We're Rochester. So there's that. Then, so Ryan, my first teaching gig was in 5th grade, so that's super close to my heart. And you both are from Minnesota. And do you like coffee and bars?
Yes.
Or could you tell what I always like to ask the people I meet from Minnesota, what is the definition of a hot dish?
Yeah, Becky, I'll let you tackle that one. You're probably good with that.
That's not what we're going to talk about. But I appreciate that. I have some dear friends from Blue Earth, and anytime I talk to people from Minnesota, I have to hit coffee and bars. So,
yes.
All right. So here we go. So the book. So 6 Steps Toward Teacher Retention and Long-Lasting Legacy. So why this book? Why? I mean, why? I mean, I think it's kind of self-evident, but what got you to write this?
Yeah, I think really there's 2 things. One is the research that we've done. and what it just the continual research that it kept pointing, the things it kept pointing to. And then it also has been our personal experiences, as Becky referred to a little bit ago. Speaking of my personal experiences, we lead off our book talking about my grandfather, and he had a legacy within his town that is lasting. And we talk about how this experience of me sitting in a gymnasium that was named after him. And it was the experience of watching individuals come down and talk about him and the things that he did to make a lasting impact on their lives. And as I sat there, the gymnasium was packed and it was full of people. And what I wondered is, how does one person make this kind of lasting impact on so many? And the stories that people told about this ability to empower others so they believed in themselves. This ability to unite people with differing backgrounds, differing opinions, differing beliefs, but also to unite them under one common cause. And so my grandfather had a lasting impact on people, and his platform for doing that was education. And as an educator and as a leader in his school, he had an ability to create this ripple effect that he impacted one, and then that one impacted others. And so that's kind of where my passion lies in terms of why I wanted to kind of write the book. But Becky, I'll let you kind of continue on with the story.
Mhm. And so when Ryan and I met, we started, in graduate school. We were both working on our doctoral degrees. And we had taken a trip as part of our work at Bethel University to visit schools where they really had exceptional leaders. And so Ryan and I got talking about the leaders that we had visited, and we saw some commonalities. And then we got into our personal experiences, and we were seeing some of those same commonalities come out. And then through our research, which really resonated and gave validity to what we were hearing and seeing, those same characteristics were coming out. And both of us, through our experiences being a teacher, know the importance of that leader in that school building and how that leader can make an impact. But that leader needs skills within themselves. And one of the skills that Ryan and I talk about in the book is knowing who you are as a leader, knowing your strengths, and then being able to actually designate and look at your staff and be able to help them find their strengths and then collectively bring it together. We use a term called collective efficacy, but collectively bringing it together so that you as a school community are working toward everyone's mission, vision. You're working toward a solid mission and vision, but you're bringing people's strengths in.
Well, and I love it.
We're at this interesting point in education where our teachers are showing just dramatic signs of stress, and dissatisfaction, and engagement is going down in the profession. And really, it's what we have found in the research is we dug in is there is one common thing that can help teachers kind of bounce back or get through some of the difficult things that they're facing right now. And no matter what the school size is, no matter where the school is, no matter the socioeconomic background of the school, really the common theme that we kept running into was the school leader, the school principal, and the support that that leader gives to their staff. And there's several ways in doing that, but that was the common theme that kept coming up. And so then as we started developing or brainstorming ideas for this book, really our audience is the school leader, and trying to provide tools for that leader in turn to support their staff.
Well, and I tell you, it's always a good feeling when you're doing research and your experience, your observations, and the literature line up. And it sounds like that's what happened for you both. So let's get right into it. So you identify 6 steps to maximize leadership impact and improve teacher retention. So it might be helpful if we took folks kind of through an abbreviated version of each one, and you previewed a couple of them. You talked about step 1 already, leading authentically. So you want to talk about that first step and kind of what that means when the rubber meets the road?
Sure. So, authenticity is a big deal. It's about being genuine and about being who you are. And so, a few of the steps that we kind of lay out in the book have to do with being self-aware and understanding who you are as a person and how that impacts you and those around you. We also talk about the idea of having core values, because we need to be grounded somewhere when we are presented, particularly as leaders, when we're presented with difficult things that are happening several times a day. And in order to maintain authenticity, it's really important that we have core values that we can stick to, that can help us weather some of those storms. And then another piece to that authenticity is transparency, and being open and honest about the things that we're going through, and willing to communicate to our staff.
Well, and I think honesty and vulnerability too, right? To really just kind of let people know that you don't have all the answers and no one can be expected to. I think that's a big piece of my uncle, who was a business official for, I don't know, 30 some years in New York State, said that there are no secrets in public education, only deception, which is why honesty is a novel approach. So lead authentically. That's step 1. Step 2, build teacher efficacy. So that sounds good, but like, how do you do that?
Mike,
Yeah.
one thing I just wanted to interject, and I see this in Ryan on a daily basis when we were taking courses together, but in our book, we wanted to apply application. And so when Ryan was talking about our first chapter, one of the things we talk about in application of how someone can lead authentically is start by developing a power up system. And so in the morning, when you have time to align yourself before you get to school, so getting your thoughts together, and it could be a quiet walk. Some of our colleagues that we interviewed listen to music, some journal, some read a book, but it's that time where they're getting their mind set for the day. And then the other part we talk about is just as important is powering down. And so we talk about that in the book as too. And then reflecting on that, reflection is key. What went well, what didn't go so well, and then make your list of those to do things and then leave that list at your workplace and then go and have your balance and enjoy your family, enjoy your activities so that you come back refreshed. But actually having that application was so key to us in our book.
And thank you for bringing us back there, because I think that's so important to be able to have something concrete, because that's what people need, right? Like, we can talk about efficacy and leading authentically, but sometimes in order to feel that or to be able to do that, you need specific strategies. And if those things don't come naturally to folks, it's important. I mean, you got to practice it and work it. So I love that idea of that kind of power up or kind of psych up for the day. And I maybe in another episode we can talk about what our individual playlists are for that. Mine's a little eclectic, but all right. So teacher efficacy. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Really, when we talk about efficacy, it's both, this next step is self-efficacy, about, it's a belief in yourself. And then our third chapter is really collective efficacy, where you have a belief in each other. And they really go hand in hand. And our research background there is the famous researcher Bandura. And really there's 4 pillars to developing efficacy. And one of the things that we encourage leaders to do is think about the experiences and the kinds of development opportunities that they provide in their schools using the lens of the 4 sources of efficacy. And if we look through doing it that way, that it can be beneficial. So the first one is mastery experiences. When teachers are given an opportunity to try something and do it in a safe environment, they can be a little bit more willing to try it and willing to fail, and that's okay. The next one is vicarious experiences. We need to see people like us do things well. And as we're watching those people do things well, we can say to ourselves, oh, I can do that. The next one is social persuasion. We have to be able to hear that we're doing well. So as leaders, it's really important to be mindful of being specific when we're giving feedback, particularly positive feedback. We can call that feeding up. And so some of the opportunities that I've had as an administrator is doing walkthroughs. And so I'll walk through a classroom and notice something positive, and then I will feed up the teacher with that one specific little nugget of positivity. And then the last one is affective states. And really that has to do with psychological safety. So producing an environment where people can feel like they are safe to be themselves. We do that by making quality connections with people. And Becky, you can share some experiences I'm sure that you have had promoting psychological safety. One of my experiences is just every morning as a principal, I made it a point to greet every single staff member as much as I could. And it just by popping from door to door. And it would be peeking my head in the classroom and saying, hey, good morning. Do you need anything today? Can I help you with anything? And typically that would, somebody would say good morning, or they'd say, yeah, I wanted to touch base with you on whatever. And that allowed some of the walls to break down, because it's a familiar face every morning, and consistency is important.
And it also cuts down on email, because
it's big time.
Nip a lot of things in the bud if you're visible and having those kinds of conversations. Very cool.
So, Mike, when Ryan and I were studying Bandura's research, we tried to find practical examples from our everyday life that we could actually bring to conferences to share with people. And Ryan, I'm wondering if you can share with him. I mean, Ryan hit it out of the park in finding the best example between the two of us. And Ryan and I both like spending our summers at the lake. But Ryan, could you share that example that really would key in for people and give them that visual of Bandura's work with your son's experience?
Yeah. So my son, Owen, he's a little older now, but when he was young, he was really scared of swimming. He was really scared of the water. And when you go to the cabin every weekend, you got to be a swimmer. And he was very, very nervous about jumping in. He was very nervous about putting his head under the water. And so really, if we look at his experience of becoming a swimmer, we can kind of tie in some of these sources of efficacy that we're talking about. And so number one, we have him take swimming lessons. And his first session of lessons weren't great. His second session of lessons weren't great. And it took us a long time. And that's mastery experiences. It's doing something over and over and over again until you feel confident that you can do it. The very first time that Owen decided that he was actually going to jump in and go underwater, it wasn't by chance. He actually was watching his little cousin swim around that day in the water. And him watching someone that was like him, maybe a little bit younger, was his vicarious experience. So he needed to see it in action and see somebody that was like him doing it. And then he told himself, well, I can do it. If they can do it, I can do it. Social persuasion, in this case, It was those around him saying, "Oh, and you got this, buddy. We're not going to let you fall." And he's got an Uncle Kent, that sat in the water off the dock and waited for him to jump in. And Uncle Kent had his arms stretched up towards Owen, and he wasn't holding Owen. He wanted Owen to jump to him. But that is a great visual for leaders. And what it's saying is, hey, I'm not going to let you fall here. I'm here. I'm here to support you, but you got to take a step too. And then the affective state was, again, all of these people around him showing him support and love that, yep, you can do this. And eventually he worked up the courage. He jumped in, he got out of the water, and he was so proud of himself. And everyone around was cheering for him, and it was a big deal. But those are the things that we do in our schools as well. We provide these opportunities for people to do things over and over again until they feel comfortable to do it. We give them opportunities to watch others kind of pave the way. We give them opportunities to hear that they can do it. And then we create environments that are supportive.
So now, as I listen, two things come to mind as I listen to that example. First one, who knew there's lakes in Minnesota? No, but how much of that, by creating that kind of environment for teachers and staff to feel that support to take risks, that has to translate into how the teachers then approach their work with students.
And it sure does. That example that Ryan shared, I've shared that with many of the staffs that I've worked with. And then we have, for application purposes, what we call a weekly staff huddle. And it's where there's no agenda by you as the administrator, no agenda by like a curriculum director or anyone, but it's where you get together and you celebrate, or you're there to support someone and walk alongside someone. And so by sharing that example that Ryan did, and using that as a model, teachers will then start sharing how the teacher next to them, or a teacher that they didn't even connect with, reached out to them, helped them. And then what was so amazing is when we were doing these weekly huddles, the teachers would start doing these with their students. Some of them called them a morning meeting, or they would find a weekly time on Friday to recap with the students, all these things that were happening within the classroom. And so you're not even building it just with your teachers, but when it starts going into the students and building it, and then the students taking it home and sharing it with their families, that's where we really see like the difference happening in the culture and the belief of each person.
I love it. And wow, yeah, absolutely. And it is cool to see, particularly as a leader, to see the effects of what you're doing with your staff make it to the students like that. I mean, there's nothing better than that. So step three is to, which I think you kind of led into, right? Foster collective efficacy among your staff. So it's personal efficacy for staff members, but then thinking more macro about collective efficacy. Say more about that.
So collective efficacy is really this idea where people have a shared belief in their ability or their power to produce an outcome. And it's, at the end of the day, it's looking across the hallway and believing in the person that's across the hallway from you. It's walking in the hallway and seeing a staff member pass you and believing in that person as well. And when we talk about self-efficacy, it's a personal belief. Collective efficacy is a collective belief. It's a shared belief among the group. And so that is kind of the distinct difference. So the challenge is then providing the same kind of sources of efficacy, but doing that as a group. So trying to find mastery experiences as a group. We do this together. We're going to learn together and get better together. As a group, we're going to watch others, maybe other schools, or maybe it's other grade levels that are doing this that we can learn from. As a group, I'm going to, during my staff meetings, socially persuade the great things that are happening here. So it's doing a lot of the things that we do with our individual teachers, but taking it more to the school level.
Makes total sense. And then the next one, step five, you have listen to your staff with empathy. Now that seems like, well, yeah, duh. But so I mean, you put it in the book for a reason. So why?
This one we put in the book because that is the key, is through the listening sessions. So Ryan and I, we experience this as leaders ourselves, but truly having a listening session with your staff. And when you say you're having a listening session, you put the question out there, and then for the rest of the time, you're quiet and you let the pause and the silence take place. You let people listen to each other, and from their responses, they'll, generate another thought. But you, as the leader, are stepping back and you're opening it up. And through that, then you are giving that belief and that empowerment to your staff to help you come up with some solutions to some of the toughest problems that you may be encountering. It could be with school discipline or, bus behavior, or it may even be Ryan and I have talked about sometimes you're going through budget cuts in a building. And how are we going to go about this process? And how can we work through this together, or reductions?
So, in terms of setting up a conversation like that, I imagine there's many teachers out there, myself included, who's never had an administrator say, "Hey, let's have this meeting and I'm just gonna listen." So,
Hmm.
when you set that up, is it super explicit where you're like, "I'm gonna ask a question and then I'm not talking, so go." Is that is that the approach?
So we always, when Ryan and I work together, we always use like our teaching strategies. So the first thing we do, and Ryan, feel free to interject here, but model it. So like we'll say, we'll talk about the importance of it, give them the theory of the listening and how great ideas come through us listening to each other. And then from there, once we share with them more about the theory and that, actually modeling it, and at a staff meeting, showing them by truly listening to each other how we got ideas to move forward on an initiative, or how ideas came up that weren't even on the idea list, how new things came up. And then we've done it in a variety of ways because people process differently. So we've also had note cards that we have, like in the staff lounge, we've had the question there so people can prepare ahead of time. And some people prefer to write their thoughts down and they'll just hand it to a colleague to read. We've done that too, to start creating that openness and that trust. Ryan, I'll let you talk a little bit about
Yeah, I
yours.
think it's also really important to note that you have to be incredibly vulnerable doing this, and it is really uncomfortable. And we talk about it, we preach it and think it's important, but then when you're the person standing there doing the listening, it can be really hard. And so we do honor that and we understand that. And however, there's a lot of value here. And the piece that I have found really helpful is being very explicit about the expectations of that meeting or of that listening session. So if there's a particular topic, you want to be really, really explicit about what that topic is and that we're staying on the topic. Something that we've used before is just like a little parking lot station where if somebody had something they wanted to mention that was outside of the topic, you write it down on a sticky note, you throw it in the little parking lot, piece of paper that you have over somewhere else in the room. And then you're collecting thoughts, and that can be something that's addressed later, or maybe a future listening session could have to do with that. And then the last piece that we've done pretty consistently, or that Becky and I talk about, is establishing norms. And so having some very clear things that this is how we will do this together.
Well, and I
And
think, go ahead, Becky.
we found too, Mike, through the listening sessions, the thought of gaining multiple perspectives. And so often, maybe a fifth grade teacher will not be hearing the perspective of a kindergarten teacher, just where they're located in a building. And it's been helpful for them to hear each other's perspectives, because then they together become part of solving the problem, rather than not knowing all of the information.
Well, and I think, it's you're wise, right? Because, you don't want you need structure. Otherwise, it turns into a Festivus style airing of grievances generally, which is rarely helpful, but that super, super practical. And then your last one, step 6, is to unite around a shared vision. And shared vision, and I'm going to tell you just right off the rip, that's one of those things that I feel like people hear mission, vision, values, goals, things like that, and it's almost like the Charlie Brown adult voice, because we've just destroyed those concepts so much in K-12 education. At least that's been my experience in New York, that we wordsmith the heck out of 2 sentences, put it up on the wall, and then forget about it. So talk about, and I don't know if you get into too much of the crafting of the shared vision, or is it more about uniting around the vision that's already there, or how do you approach this in a way that is meaningful and doesn't just become something that we, print out on a poster and hang up on the wall, and maybe come back to when we get a new superintendent?
I want to give Ryan credit for this one, because as we were working on pieces of the book, we brought forth like our very best thoughts. And Ryan, if you could share about the DNA, because the shared vision really starts with that DNA piece.
Sure. So, in some of the workshops and things that we've done in the past, Becky and I talk about that each individual has what we call a DNA, and DNA it stands for desires, needs, and abilities, and we need to know what the desires of people are. We need to know what their needs are. We need to know what their abilities and sometimes even attitudes are in specific things. And so a lot of times when we're able to voice those things, we understand the DNA of each other. Then it's a little bit easier to get onto a track of here's where we want to go together. So hopefully, is that kind of what you're referring to there,
Yeah.
Becky?
And how that activity, knowing the desires, needs, and abilities, and then staff knowing each other's, and then crafting that shared vision really is helpful. And so that's how that shared vision becomes so strong, is because it comes from those collective commitments.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And I want to be sensitive to both of your time. The book is called 6 Steps Toward Teacher Retention and Long-Lasting Legacy, published through Solution Tree, correct? And I will link to that in the show notes so people can find you, you both, and the book. Any parting shots before I let you go?
At the very end of the book, Ryan and I put together a poem, and it all talks about the principal and the staff being difference makers. And so, if building principals are looking for a tool, or teachers are looking for a tool to recognize another staff member, I currently really encourage them to read that poem about being a difference maker.
Yeah, we'd just like to thank you for giving us a few minutes to chat. We both have, Becky and I both have a passion for education, and teaching is what we call a soul craft. It's the kind of profession that we do with our hearts, and we have amazing teachers. We need to find ways to support them, find ways for them to feel like they can believe in themselves and they can believe in each other. And eventually, hopefully, we can keep them in the profession.
I love it. But thank you so much for your work in putting this book out into the universe. And I think the timing is absolutely perfect. We need this. We need people thinking in this way. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the School Leadership Show, a podcast for aspiring and practicing school leaders. Send your comments, questions, and show ideas to me, Mike, at schoolleadershipshow.com. And please consider rating the podcast in iTunes and leaving a comment. And definitely pass the show along to your colleagues. perfect. Wait, you're good like, for a take. That was
We've done this before.
yeah, not that kind of rodeo. Well, thank you both so much. I really appreciate the time and I appreciate your patience with me having to reschedule. This was great conversation. You guys are doing amazing work. If there's any way I can help or if I don't, certainly, you have my contact information and I will send you, I'll try to do the post-production tonight and then maybe get it up in the next day or so. And I'll shoot you an email after it goes up.
Yeah.
And Mike, how does that work if we share it with Solution Tree? Can they share it out too, or
Yeah.
how does?
Yeah.
Okay,
So, because typically what will happen is we'll do something and then we'll pass it on to them, and then they have such massive following, so they'll push it through their social media and stuff, and then that is kind of how it gets out there because they obviously have a lot of followers and that kinds of thing compared to what Becky and I would have individually, and so yeah, as long as you're comfortable with it.
I would be thrilled because I'm
Okay.
terrible at social media. I do interviews mainly for self-indulgence because I like to talk to cool, smart people and then, see who downloads it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome. And there's one, Mike, that we'll send it to. She's the one that really works with Ryan and I. You sort of have a contact person. Her name's Claudia Wheatley.
Okay.
And so she will be like super excited. She might even reach out to you individually to get to know you personally. She's just a very
Absolutely. I'm always up for it.
person.
And always up for talking to people from Minnesota. Love you guys. Go Vikings, except I'm a Bills.
Yeah.
No. Thank you so much. Have a great night. It was great seeing you. I'll be in touch.
All right,
You
take
bet.
care.
Sounds
Thanks a
good.
lot, Mike.
Thanks, Ryan. Bye.